So Greg McElroy is a friend of the program. I think he's one of the best in the industry. He has a show called Always College Football that he does through ESPN on their YouTube channel. Go check that out. And he said something about Brian Kelly that I thought was really fascinating. He says that Brian Kelly has a 50% chance to win a national championship while he's at LSU. And so you hear the percentages, and you're like, 50%? That's pretty high, Greg. I don't know about 50%, man. 1 in 2? Giving Brian Kelly a 1 in 2 chance, that's the initial response that I think most people's brain would have. But then you start to walk it out a little bit further, and you look at Greg's reasoning, and I think he's got a lot of great points he's making within this. So we'll kind of unpack this together. A quick plug here. Make sure you're subscribed here to this channel, the On3 YouTube channel. It's May. We're talking strictly college football. Like, this is part of a live show. We're talking college football for a full hour. If you're a little bit of a sicko for this thing that we call college football, good news, we are too. So make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss a minute of any of the content that we got going here on the Hard Count on the On3 YouTube channel. Also, we're on podcasts, Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcasts. Go ahead and subscribe to that feed as well. We appreciate you for that. So like I said, Greg McElroy says 50% chance for Brian Kelly to win a natty while he's at LSU. I think he's got a lot of good points here. And for me, the big thing with LSU and their national title aspirations, you look at the guys that have done it previously, Nick Saban, Ed Orgeron, Les Miles, like, it's very obvious now the common denominator is the ingredients available at LSU. Like, the state of Louisiana, high school recruiting is top-notch. Doesn't get the same shine as a Texas or a Florida or a California, but, like, you can win if you just put a fence around the state of Louisiana. And Brian Kelly's done a really good job doing that to this point, has recruited at a high level to this point, 2025, as we're live right now, a top 3 class in that cycle. There's very real brand power when it comes to LSU. Nationally, yes. In the state, yes. I think there's some ridiculous number of high schools in the state that wear purple and gold and are called the Tigers. Like, people want to come play at LSU. People want to come play at LSU. Also, as we move into the modern era of college football, funny we're talking about this on the heels of the whole Brian Kelly, we're not in the business of buying players conversation from Jacques Doucette, but, like, let's call a spade here. LSU and their care factor from a fan base level and from a powers that be level in terms of the boosters and whatnot, like, I think it's as high as it will need to be to win a national title. It used to be, and we say this a lot on this show, it used to be, give us money, we'll buy a waterfall to put in the facility to get more recruits. Now it's, give us money, we're going to go pay that player to get a nice NIL package together to bring them to Baton Rouge. So I think when you look at the previous coaches, as we mentioned, that have done it here, Les Miles, Nick Saban, Ed Orgeron. Nick Saban, we're going to go ahead and put in just a different category, okay? He's the greatest of all time. But I think when you look at Brian Kelly compared to Ed Orgeron and Les Miles, I don't think it's irresponsible to say he's a better head coach. Greg said it, so we took a little bit of a deeper dive on it. Les Miles, from his career, won 66% of his games. Pretty good, right? Not bad at all. I mean, you go win 2 out of 3 games every single year. If that's your average, like, all right, that's not a bad batting average. Ed Orgeron, including the 15-0 run where they won the whole darn thing with Joe Burrow and co., had a 58% career winning percentage. Brian Kelly has a higher winning percentage than both those coaches that won national titles at LSU. Brian Kelly has won 73% of his games. So if we're just talking about your ability to coach football, Brian Kelly, by nature of how many games that he has won, feels like that would be fair to say he's a better coach than both those individuals. It feels like it's fair to have the expectation that he'd be able to achieve similar status and win national titles that both those coaches also did. And Greg says that exact same thing. He says, I think both those coaches are good, and Ed Orgeron and Les Miles. I think Brian Kelly is in that elite category, and I think he's right on the money in saying that. Now, to add to this now, look at how the landscape of college football is changing and has changed with how you can win a national championship. It's 12 teams. Long gone are the days where you got to be the biggest and baddest in your conference and go toe-to-toe with somebody in Atlanta and go undefeated and find your way into that 4-team dance. If you're Brian Kelly, it's like, hey, let's finish top 3 in the SEC. We cool with that? Let's finish top 3 in the SEC. Let's win 10 ball games. Let's punch our ticket to the college football playoff. We'll host a game in Baton Rouge. It'll be awesome. Can you imagine Death Valley having a college football playoff game? I just get giddy thinking about it. I get giddy from a college football broad strokes perspective as a sicko for this sport, thinking about Death Valley at night hosting a college football playoff game. That would be everything that's right and true with this sport, but we move on. That's advantage to Brian Kelly. You don't got to win the SEC. You'd like to get a bye, but you don't got to win the SEC. You can just make that 12-team dance, get hot at the right time. Let's go on a run. Let's get some hardware. Also, I think we'd be remiss if we didn't say this. There's no more Nick Saban. And we love Nick Saban on this show. I promise you, though, you don't like Nick Saban if you got to play him to get to a national championship. You got to go through a Nick Saban Alabama. Now, Kalen DeBoer in Alabama is a whole nother obstacle in itself. We'll see how much. But not having to coach against the greatest of all time, it's probably a nice little additive to the way this landscape looks for Brian Kelly and his aspirations to win a national championship. When Brian Kelly took the job at LSU, the between-the-lines messaging as to why he took the job was, I want to win a national championship, and I want to compete against the best. I want to have the resources to do both those things. Notre Dame is phenomenal, but the resources and the situation with recruiting players is much better at LSU than it is at Notre Dame. That's not dunking on Notre Dame. Notre Dame fans know that. Brian Kelly is now in the situation where he has everything he needs to win a national title. Everything. And so as much as people are saying there's, pressure on LSU and there's pressure on Brian Kelly, like Brian Kelly knows there's pressure. Brian Kelly is inviting pressure. Brian Kelly came to LSU for the pressure. He wants all the smoke, man. I promise you. He's more than fine with that. Like, the fans expect national championships, no matter who the head coach is. Why? Because they have been proven to, on multiple occasions, it's possible. It's possible. Like, they have broken through whatever glass ceiling there was at one point in time for LSU winning national championships. Like Nick Saban, Les Miles, Ed Orgeron, they all just ran through that thing. Brian Kelly, I think, is a better coach than two of those three, and the other being the greatest of all time, to win national championships. It's more than possible. Now, here's the interesting thing that I think we need to consider. Talk a lot about the care factor. Talk a lot about how much NIL is playing a factor in teams winning national titles now. I have been told that LSU is really swinging a big bat when it comes to this 2025 recruiting class at the NIL level. They're more than willing to play ball. Here's the thing about success, man. It's addicting. You get a little taste of it. You're like, ooh, I like that. Ooh, hey, where do we find some more of that? If LSU ends up winning a national title in the near future, that's going to open the floodgates to the resources that could be available from the NIL level for Brian Kelly and for LSU. I'm just telling you, man, that would be the reality. Because it's one thing to sell someone a vision and say, hey, give us money, we'll go win you a national title. You can convince me to give you a few greenbacks if that's your pitch, but to actually go and win a national title, then come back to me and say, hey, you like this? I'm just nodding my head, just sort of dazed in enjoyment of winning a national title. You like this? Give us some more money. Keep enjoying it. At that point, I'm willing to stroke a check for you, bro. Like, at that point, like, we're rolling. At that point, you name how many zeros you want from a deep-pocketed booster. Brian Kelly's 62 years old. 62 years old, man. I mean, I'm not saying that Brian Kelly could strap it up and go play tomorrow, but I am saying that he's probably got, 10 years left to coach college football? If he so chooses. I think 50% is a pretty strong number to give him. I'm not so sure that I wouldn't lean more towards like 70, 75% for Brian Kelly to go win a national title at LSU. The field to get it done, expanding the field makes it more possible. No more Nick Saban. That's at least one boss level you don't have to play. They're recruiting at a high level. Coaches that did it before you, I don't believe are necessarily breathing the same air as you. I'm all in on it. If I'm LSU, I'm all in on Brian Kelly, and I think that it's a matter of time. I think it's a matter of when, not so much if, he wins a national title in Baton Rouge. Hey, y'all. Thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also, be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.